Hello, welcome to the live video discussion of Blade Runner the book versus Blade Runner the movie. The original, not the 2049 one. I haven't done one of these in a long time, definitely never one like this. So obviously on my author page, we're talking about books and so forth. Have you ever read a book, then gone to the movie and been horribly disappointed? Yeah, me too. And very recently, like last night, I read this book in the last week, Blade Runner, by Philip K. Dick. Mr. Dick wrote this book, and it released in 1968. If you don't know who he is, he was pretty amazing. He wrote over 20 novels, most of them all fantasy, dystopian, tragedies, and so forth. Blade Runner is just one of them. Other ones you will actually know are things like Minority Report, Total Recall, Man on the High Castle, Screamer, Nexus Dawn, and many others. He was alive from 1928 to 1982. He was kind of known as that guy that wrote the crazy books, fantasy novels. So I really love this movie. It's a weird cult classic, and I really love reading the book. But then when I watched the movie immediately following the book, I realized they're not the same at all. So I think there is a discussion that you can like the book and like the movie, but they're not the same. They're not the same at all. It's totally different. And as an author, that's been a discussion I've been having about my book. Would I ever like it to be put into a movie form? Of course. But what if they change the whole thing? Obviously that's upsetting to the writer, but maybe it's fine. Apparently it was fine for Mr. Dick. He wrote a lot of books that became movies. I'm not sure if they're all different, but Blade Runner definitely is different. And I'm going to go through it a little bit just because it made me so upset. There's almost nothing alike from the movie to the book, other than the guy's name. The main character is Rick Deckard, and that actually rings true. The woman character that was kind of the main character, Rachel, her first name is correct. In the book, it was Rachel Rosen. In the movies, they turned it into Rachel Tyrell from the Tyrell Corporation. Just strange things, like why would a producer change this stuff? The book started in 2021. They moved the movies to 2019. In the movie, Rick Deckard is divorced. There's no mention of his wife at all whatsoever. In the book, she's prominent through the entire thing, from the beginning to the end. Their relationship is big. It's a big deal because it gets into the whole life of humans on this false Earth. When after a nuclear war, there's a weird religion that's created called mercerism, and they have like these empathy machines where you can plug yourself into a collective. You can dial up your emotions you want to have, and it's very involved. There's chapter upon chapter about mercerism. Eventually it gets exposed as a fraud by the TV show Buster Friendly, which isn't mentioned anywhere in the movie either, as a bunch of actors creating it, not a real religion at all. Then the interesting thing is that Buster Friendly was actually an android. So there are android versus human elements in the movie as well as in the book. Obviously, that's the whole thing, but nothing like this is portrayed in either one. In the book, Rick Deckard is just as obsessed as most all humans that remained on Earth and didn't flee to other colonies with having something alive, a pet. There are almost no animals left. You have to buy them all from very high, expensive like pet stores and dealers, and to have a live animal is like status. And so he had an electric sheep that he passed off as a real sheep. And that's the whole subtitle, to Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. That's what that means. Of course, none of that's mentioned in the movie at all. His sheep is actually electric. He's incredibly ashamed about that. His wife actually hates him for it and treats him horribly because he's a cop or he's a bounty hunter. He can't afford a real sheep, and it's really embarrassing. None of that's mentioned in the movie. In the movie, they're called replicants. It's a big deal to call them replicants. In the book, that word is never mentioned. They're called Andes, like androids. A nickname for them. They're all Andes. And you are retiring them, which they do say in the movie. You retire them, it's just killing them. And Rick actually ends up, after he kills 3 of them, he has so much money that he actually spends all that money, all of it, the whole bounty here, in $3,000, which is a lot of money on this world, and buys a real goat, a black Nubian female goat, which cost all of his money plus a down payment for 20 years, a monthly payment to keep this goat. Anyway, that's not mentioned at all in there either. Buying an animal or having a fake electric animal is a huge deal to humans in the book, but not in the movie. So Rachel Rosen versus Rachel Tyrell. She is an android in both, and Rick Deckard does do a voight comp test on her in both, and that's pretty accurate, and it's one of the greatest scenes in the book. They just barely mention the owl. The owl in the book has like several chapters. They offer to give it to him if he'll like back off killing all these Nexus 6 androids because they don't want him to kill him. Turns out eventually they find out it's a fake owl anyway. Strange. Sorry, I mean notes here. So then their relationship between Decker and Rachel is a big deal in the movie because he doesn't have a wife involved. It's a big deal in the book too, but it's more like he's having an affair because he has a wife. He calls her for help to kill the last 3 androids because she's a Nexus 6, so he thinks she can help him. In the movie, she just shows up at his apartment with a bunch of pictures and is like, I have all these memories. I love you. I'm a human being. And they have like their intimate moment together. And she's all sad and depressed. She's not like sad and depressed at all in the book. She's much more dominant and controlling, and she tries to control him. When he wants her to come help kill all these other androids, she basically says, no, I'm too busy. And he says, well, I'll give up killing all these androids if you meet me at a hotel. And so she agrees and flies down and meets him at this hotel for a hookup instead of killing androids. Because it's her belief that if a human being has sex with an android, they won't be able to kill them anymore because of the relationship that grows. Yeah, doesn't really hold true. But there's a whole bunch more with Rachel that's not even close to what happened in the book. Also, the number of androids is entirely different. In the movie, they say there's 4. In the book, there's a group of 8 that escape Mars and come back to Earth and try to blend in. 2 of them get killed by Dave Holden, who's the guy that does the most classic scene in the whole book, in the whole movie, the voight comp thing where he's doing that to Leon Kowalski. Kowalski doesn't exist in the book, but there's a guy named Polakov that does, who are kind of the same type character. The Andes that Dave Holden puts the voight comp to are never shown in the book because he kills 2 of them. But he gets shot and sent to the hospital, and he's not in the movie at all. He's in the movie, or he's not in the book at all, but he's in the movie and does that great scene with Kowalski doing the voight comp test, which is classic. It's a classic scene. But none of that happens in the book at all. There's 6 androids remaining after the 2 that Dave Holden kills. All of those are suddenly Rick Deckard's responsibility, which is Harrison Ford's character, to kill. And he has no belief that he can actually kill 6 of these amazing, super strong androids, but he has to do it. It's his job. Let's see here. Yeah, then the next one he goes after is Polakov, which is a Russian cop. He comes over. It's kind of like a little bit like the Kowalski character. He ends up killing him. But then he goes after Luba Luff, who is the character that's sort of similar to the Snake Lady character, where they have the Snake Woman, that she's a performer. Luba Luft is a much cooler character. I have no idea why the movie people didn't use her. She's an opera singer with the San Francisco Opera, and he goes and visits her, starts putting the voight comp test on her, and she fails. She calls the cops on him. Well, it turns out to be fake cops. They're android cops running an entirely fake cop unit, and they arrest Rick Deckard, take him down to the station. And he's like, hey, call my wife, call my superiors, and they're like, we never heard of you, we don't know anything. It turns out to be an entire shadow cop shop. going on. None of that's in the movie at all. Would have been really cool to kind of fit it in there. They just made the movie very simple. So maybe that's what it is. They just have to simplify the whole thing down. But they did. Eventually, it turns out the head cop at this other cop shop, Inspector Garland, he's an android. Deckard figures it out, and he calls in a different bounty hunter. But bounty hunters were all they were ever called in the movie. They were never called Blade Runners. That movie, that's totally a movie thing, not in the books at all. Just bounty hunter, not Blade Runner. Anyway, they do end up escaping. He kills the inspector and escapes from this kind of fake police station with all androids in it. And they do decide to go after Luba Luff together, these two guys, kind of like the Gaff character, the other cop friend that helps, which is a James Olmos character in the movie, which helps Harrison Ford's character, Deckard. But his real name was Phil Resch. He was another bounty hunter. He's not mentioned in the movie at all, but I would imagine it's kind of the Gaff character. And they go off looking for the Snake Lady. Well, actually, I think Harrison Ford did the Snake Lady on his own without his helper. In the book, they did it together, and Phil Resch actually kills Luba Luff, which is the singer, which I would imagine is the Snake Lady in the movie. Crazy. So after she's dead, it basically ends up there are 3 left at that point in the book, 3 androids left. In the movie, there's only 4 to begin with, and 2 are killed pretty quickly, and then 2 are remaining out in the apartment, the abandoned apartment place, the Pris and Roy Batty. Roy Batty in the book has a wife named Ermengarde Batty, and Pris is there also. The 3 of them remain. Another thing weird, they changed the spelling of Batty. B-A-T-Y is what it was in the book. They changed it to B-A-T-T-Y in the movie. Who knows? It's just better that way, I guess. So strange. Anyway, Phil actually kills Luba, and it really upsets Deckard because he was attracted to her in some way. So then they have a huge, 2 or 3 chapters on whether Phil's an android or not. So they agree to give the voight comp test to each other. They pass. Phil proves that he's a human, and he kind of disappears out of the book after that. Deckard is now tasked to go kill the last three androids in the book. In the movie, it's only the 2. So then, I gotta hurry up. That was my warning that the baseball game I'm going to be watching in about 30 seconds has begun. So the discussion of Blade Runner is going to speed up. I have 2 more pages of notes. Okay. In the movie, the main android, Roy Batty, decides to kill his maker, which is the Tyrell Corporation guy, Eldon Tyrell. In the book, it was Eldon Rosen. They never kill him. They never do anything like that. In the movie, he goes and squishes his head, and it's a great, crazy scene. A guy named J.F. Sebastian, which is a pretty cool character in the movie, isn't in the book. There's a J.R. Isidore, which is probably the same character roughly, but they don't do anything with the eye guy, the guy that creates the eyes, which is in the movie, and the guy that's the founder of the Tyrell Corporation. They don't touch that in the book at all. And the androids definitely don't go kill the leader of the Tyrell Corporation. So it's totally a different change there as well. Let's see here. Yeah, that's about it through that part. Phil Resch, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the interesting part about the end of the book is that he goes to kill the 3 androids. He doesn't take his android friend Rachel because she's not really his friend. She's trying to use him. And then he gets in there and he has a vision from the Mercer thing, this religion that's not mentioned in the movies at all either. It's a kind of a religion where you plug into this empathy machine. He has a vision not plugged in that the hardest one to kill will be Pris, the girl. And the reason that is because Pris looks exactly like Rachel, the girl that he liked, the other android. All the girl androids that are next to 6 look the same. The boys all look the same. And in the movie, they're entirely different actresses. So it kind of would have been cool, I think, in the movie to have it be the same actress, Sean Young, because then it would have made it emotionally more difficult for Deckard to kill her. But the way it was, he didn't have any problem killing her, and the movie moved on fine. Actually, in the he also kills her, and he proves to himself that he can kill either androids, no matter what they look like, and it gives him confidence that he's going to survive somewhat. So then he goes on and fights Roy, but it's really not a huge fight. In the movie, it's a massive fight. It's a huge fight scene. It's one of the most favorite scenes of the movie. Ends up with some pretty cool scenes on what is humanity. You know, if you have a heart, or if you're an android, is it empathy? Empathy is the main thing in the books, and it's slightly touched on in the movie. But empathy is what they're saying, or the author is saying, creates humanity. But the fight scene is pretty easy. He kills Pris in the movie, and then and the fight is forever with Roy. In the book, he kills Pris, and that's very difficult. And the fight with Roy is almost nothing. But he also has a wife. Roy's got his wife, Ermengarde, Daddy, in the book, and he kills her too. She's not mentioned in the movies at all. So totally different again. Not to mention all the stuff where Pris is torturing a spider. She cuts his legs off and so forth. It's all more back and back on this. If you have remorse, if you have empathy, that's what makes you human. And it's much more interesting in the book because it obviously gets deeper into it. And of course, as an author, I love books more than movies in some ways, but I also love movies. And I do think it's a great movie, but it's just nothing like the book. Then after that, the endings of the books are hilariously different too. In the movie, Deckard and Rachel, the android that he kind of fell in love with or had a fling with, right off into the sunset together, started to live together out in the wilderness or out in the plains. That didn't happen at all in the books because he has a wife. First of all, he goes back to his wife and finds out while he was killing all the androids and having the fight of his life, Rachel showed up at their house and killed their goat. She pushed the goat off the roof. The goat's dead. His most valued possession. He still owes a ton of money on it. And Rachel killed it. So there's no love lost between Rachel and Deckard in the book at the ending, and he stays with his wife, and they kind of have actually a good moment of coming back together as husband and wife. And not in the movie, he runs off with an alien because there's no wife in the movie at all because he's divorced. So it's kind of crazy how different the two of these are. And then there's a whole couple chapters on a toad. Deckard goes out into the wilderness and finds a toad that he thinks is a real toad. And if you do find a real animal that's extinct, you're given like a lifetime pension. And he's so excited that he's now going to be rich. Goes home, shows his wife after he finds out the goat is dead. He's like, well, we found that I got this toad and we're going to be rich. She starts looking at the toad. Finds out the toad's electric. It's got like a trap door on the bottom for the batteries or whatever, how to power it. And he's so depressed, he like goes and falls asleep. And basically that's the end of the book. So it's a great book. I've ruined it for you if you've not read it, of course, because there was spoilers all through this discussion. The point is, it's nothing like each other, and I don't care. I mean, that's fine. I like them both, and I felt like it was an interesting thing to talk about, so that's why I'm doing this. And maybe I'll do it again if I find another book that doesn't match this movie or one that does exactly. It's just strange why producers do what they do in some ways to me, because I think the book was great here. There was a ton of cool information in it. It could have really made the movie great, and they totally decided to change it. So the mind of a producer and a director, I guess I'd have no idea how they work. So enjoy the book, enjoy the movie. Bladerunner. But they're not the same, so you can actually enjoy them both. That's it for me for now. There'll be a lot more coming in the coming days about my book from the spring, Beer Money, about the beer riots of 1884 in Iowa City, and the beer mafia and the three brewers versus the prohibition movement. It's a great book that'll be coming out in spring. There'll be a lot more coming about that as well. And if it became a movie and they changed it, I would be heartbroken. But I guess that's part of watching books become movies. They aren't the same at all. Maybe. Anyway, over and out. Have a great night.